Hello and welcome to the Hearthstone Half Hour. I'm Hammy and this is failplays. Hope you're well and good. We are going to be jumping in our New Player Monday today and taking a bit of an in-depth look at a deck that we've seen bouncing around on the ladder, bouncing around the Hearthstone community that just looks fun. It's also gone to Legend, so it's a little bit of a different Druid deck with Goblins versus Gnomes that's got some legend, and it's comboing a few different styles of Druid play, which is why I found it so interesting. So without further ado, it's called Tree Druid, and all credit to Saucy. He's a WU Legend player and you should totally check him out. I will put the link to his summary of this deck in the YouTube description. However, you guys can see it if you're totally with us live on twitch.tv/failcraftcast in the chat now. But it will be in the YouTube description if you're on YouTube. So, without further ado, let us jump on in. What we're going to do is what we always do on a New Player Monday. We're going to take a look, break the deck down roughly card by card, get some kind of idea of how we play it, and then we're just going to take it into the ladder. It's a new season, we're pretty low on the ladder at this point in time, so although this won't be indicative of perhaps top flight play, hopefully we'll get some decent decks that you should see on the ladder or bouncing around in casual mode. I always recommend, if you're playing a new deck for the first time, go into casual mode and try it out. You are not going to have anything to lose, and it'll be a bunch of fun too, and you can really get a good hang of how the deck will play there. So this Tree Druid, we've also done a 2-minute summary of it that you can see on youtube.com/failcraftcast. Let's go into it in more detail here. Now, I like this deck because it has elements of ramp, getting big nasty cards out more quickly than you can usually. That's all well and good if you've played Hearthstone before. If you haven't played Hearthstone before, you're kind of new. Ramp Druid is great for ramping. It lets you get out big cards with Innovate and Wild Growth, but we'll go through those in a sec. This also has an element or two of what used to be described as Watcher. You've got a few cards here that can give you a nice big finishing combo, but they can also sort of stick the deck together, and I'm looking at Sun Fury Protector there. You can create tanks and things. It's got flexibility. This deck can sort of mould, it can evolve, you can try and play it in different ways, and it's got a bit of flex in it depending on the opponent that you're facing. And then last but not least, it's got a nice little finishing combo which gives it its name. Tree of Life is a new card for Druids with Goblins versus Gnomes, Hearthstone's first expansion, and we're going to see how that plays out as well. So let's go through the deck and then let's jump into a couple of games and see how it fares. So what do we have that we recognise from a Druid perspective? If you're new, Innovate and Wild Growth are your ramp cards. 2 mana crystals for 0 mana spent, or Wild Growth is for 2 mana, you gain an empty mana crystal, meaning that next turn you're going to be an additional mana crystal ahead of your opponent. If you went first, or if you're going second, then you're going to be caught up. So this is how you ramp. You can use these cards to get bigger threats on the table more quickly than you would usually be able to. Innovate's always great. On turn 1, if you play an Innovate, you've got 3 mana. Turn 2, when you've got 2 mana, you've got 4. If you're going second, and you can use a coin, etc, etc. Combine Innovates and coins, or Innovates with big minions to get big stuff out on the table very fast if you need to. Zombie Chows in this deck are used solely for pretty much dealing with aggro. Get those out, get them on the table, mulligan for them if you're playing Warlocks, Rushing Hunters, perhaps Mech Mages in the current meta, and get those trade with the minions. Get the minions out the way with the Zombie Chow. You don't attack to the face with Zombie Chow unless you have nothing else to do, because otherwise when the Zombie Chow dies, that 5 health is just going to get restored straight back to the enemy hero and you lose any advantage. So if in doubt, trade minions with Zombie Chow. Growth is used to smooth out your mana curve. If you've got nothing else to play, or if your opponent's got nothing else to play, use it to get ahead. Use it to be greedy. That additional mana will help you, again, as we said, ramp. Wraths can be used for controlling minions. 3 damage to a minion or 1 damage and drawing a card. Again, worth mulliganing for, as well as Zombie Chows if you're playing an aggressive early game deck. If you're playing a Hunter, probably go for those, 100%. Sun Fury is a situational. As we see later in the deck, there are lots of big, nasty tanking cards that you can use to really nail down your opponent, or put a big wall in place if you need to. And a big welcome to Timbers, who has joined us live on stream. Savage Roar combos very, very nicely with, of course, Force of Nature. You'll see several Druid decks that pack 2 of those for the big finishing combo. Savage Roar plus Force of Nature. Long story short, if there's no tank in the way, that does 14 damage to your opponent's face for 9 mana. So that is a finisher that you can save if you need. If you've got lots of minions on the table, of course, Savage Roar can be used for a finisher in other ways too. The Big Aim Hunter is for removal of big tanks, playing against big nasty decks. And the Grove Tender is an interesting situational that has been dropped in. I'm 50-50 on this card, giving each player a mana crystal or each player drawing a card. if you're in a really solid position, it can help you get further ahead, but it helps your opponent too. And don't forget, of course, that for 3 mana, this has got reasonable stats. 2 attack, 4 health. That will help you in a pinch trade against aggro if you really need to. Play the Grove Tender with caution. If you don't have it or you're not happy with it, feel free to trade it for something a bit more controlling. Shades of Nax. Now these are awesome, awesome. You'll always see these in some sort of mid-range-ish druidy decks. Brilliant in control, hard to remove. If it can't be removed pretty quickly, then the health just buffs and buffs and buffs and buffs and buffs, and it can get real, real nasty. But aggro-wise, you can always replace those with Harvest Columns or something similar. Swipes for control, pretty much against aggro. It is brilliant. You can use it for removing big minions, you can remove it for clearing aggro boards, hitting your opponent to the face. Keeper of the Grove, excellent for silence or dealing 2 damage. The 2 attack 4 health means that it can always be turned into a tank, and of course that can be used to get through tanks, remove aggro minions and similar. So far so similar, a lot of familiar druid tools here. Lotheb, nice mid-game pivot, slows down your opponent and can be turned into a tank as well with Sun Fury Protector. Could of course swap this for another Sludge Belcher, or Druid of the Claw if you really want physically to slow down your opponents a bunch as well. Belcher, good against aggro, forces opponent to deal with it. You can always swap it for Druid of the Claw as well. So again, situational. These can be switched in that as you see fit. We then have Sylvanas Windrunner. Great when it dies. It's really, really strong for forcing your opponent to deal with it, and if your opponent has got threats or is going to have big threats on the table. Generally don't want to play a Sylvanas when there's nothing nasty of your opponents on the table. If your opponent is looking as though they're going to be getting real bad real fast, you want to get Sylvanas down. Or if your opponent has big threats on the table, getting Sylvanas down means that they will have to consider whether they trade Sylvanas or get rid of their own big threats. Ancients of Laws, heal up for 5 or draw 2. Again, strong druid kit. If your druid has been taking face damage, this is used primarily for healing, but if you're in a good position, you can use it to accelerate into your late game. Dr. Boom, brilliant Goblins vs. Gnomes, legendary. Savage Roar, of course, you can get some really nice, strong attack with your Boom Bots, but the Boom Bots also will die for 1 to 4 damage to a random enemy, minion, or character. Ragnaros, you can swap it for Kel'Thuzad for the Death Rattles or Sneeds, says our deck guide here. But Rag, always going to cause some trouble for your opponent in some way. And then the nice Tree of Life combo. Play those giants for pretty much nothing, heal yourself all the way back up to 30. Even though that your opponent is going to have full health, you've got 2 giants on the table. So if you combine Tree of Life with those giants late in the game, then you're going to be causing a lot of your opponent a whole bunch of problems. So that's why this is Tree Druid. Let's see if we can get that combo off and see how it works for us. Alexstrasza then is kind of a complement for this theme as well. You can play the giants, heal yourself back up to 15 health. But you could go even more greedy if you didn't want that. Alexstrasza is safe. You could go for Ysera as well. So there you go. That is that Tree Druid as brought to us by Saucy. This has gone legend. So in our Hearthstone half hour, we've done our first piece, which is taking a look at roughly how the deck can work, or how the deck's owner believes it can work. And then let's grab it. We're rank 16, nothing too much to lose at this point in time, so I quite fancy taking this into the ladder and seeing how it can do. So what we're going to do is play a couple of games and see how this works. So we know what we roughly need to do. We need to try and get Druid. If we play against aggro, we get it under control with all of our usual tools. If we're not playing against aggro, then we're going to get as greedy as we can early on. So we're not aggro because we're playing against a priest. So, okay, right, we are playing a priest. I'm quite happy with the wild growth. I don't mind a Wrath for control. I'm going to throw back the swipe for the time being. Could of course have mulliganed more hard to try and get innovates as well, but I don't mind this too much. Oh, shouldn't click. And oh, and innovate there. Okay, so we can, if we really need to get greedy, we can fly into that Keeper of the Grove next turn. So this deck, comments in the chat, people saying, dang, this is quite the deck, it's really cool. I think this is a fun deck. The thing is that it's not fully Watcher, it's not fully ramp mid-range. I've kind of said this is kind of, it's going to fly or die. It does have the tools to control the aggro, which is like the sort of key thing, but at the same time I'm going to go, because our priest has not played anything yet, I'm going to get a little bit greedy, and you can see wild growth there. That's getting us a even Stevens as much as we can be. We're getting ourselves ahead a mana crystal, and our priest has not played anything so far. So as we are now turn 4, do I want to be druiding right now? I don't think I do. Remember, of course, because we're about rank 16 on the ladder, we could be still playing quite new players. This is not reflective of high, perhaps may not be reflective of high ladder or legend play. Down comes a Northshire cleric, so our priest is finally getting going and healing up. Lovely stuff. So I can now Lotheb, which will be pretty nice. It will really slow my opponent down. Zombie Chow finally comes out. I'm not going to worry about that too much at this point in time. I'm going to Lotheb. I feel good with that. Now a Wrath could just remove that off the table for 3. I could innovate into a Wrath, but if I save that innovate, then I can really get perhaps stuck in. I can silence with the Keeper of the Grove next turn, and then that's not going to be doing anything. That 4 health, there's not going to be anything too much going down. So as we come into a turn 6, I can actually get really greedy here. I'm going to silence that. I'm actually going to Wild Growth and get even more greedy. So my ramp is really full on at the moment. And then I'm going to go and hit to the face for 5. So I thought that our priest here would be trying to play. The priest deck in the current metagame is looking like a bit of... You see the Undertakers coming out, you see the Death Rattles, Dark Cultists trying to buff the Undertakers. In comes a Cabal Shadow Priest and a very nice steal there. You do have to be careful of the Cabals from priest. So I've had a steal. My Druid of the Grove has been taken. That's not ideal. I'm massively ahead, but what I need to do is get my opponent's side of the table under control. Force of Nature is not going to be giving me a finish right now, so I need to work out what I'm doing. Okay, well, Wrath is an option that will give me some control. I can... Well, I can go for a double control here. I need to get the table under control rather than charge to the face. So what I'm probably going to be going for is... I would rather remove this. I can then Druid, the Moonfire will let me do 2. I can then go for a Wrath, and it's a very extreme way of me drawing a card. But I want to get some card draw into Dr. Boom. Excellent, that's a perfect drop for me next turn. Then at the moment my opponent can either charge to the face, he can try and do some trading. At this point I'm quite happy to armour up and just go for the face. As Tomodachi says live in the chat, all the manners. We have all the manners indeed. So I was toying with trading this from the table. Would have been a solid enough play, but going for the slightly more expensive Holy Fire, deal 5, restore 5, nicely done. Keeps his Cabal Shadow Priest on the table, goes for a part trade, keeping himself healed up and nice. But here is where I can really start putting some pressure on. So I can throw down Dr. Boom. I'm going to basically offer a trade there and then see if my opponent has a Shadow of Death, of course, removing any minion with 5 or more attack. Then this is where it's going to come out. My opponent's got a pretty full hand here. If we're playing a fairly standard priest, there will be a Shadow of Death kicking around in there somewhere. In comes a Power Word Shield to draw a card. So I'm hoping to bait out a Shadow of Death before I throw down my Ragnaros or other large finishes. Double Power Word Shield. Lots of health, lots of card draw. Thought Steal, stealing my cards, and Thought Steal is so nasty in a priest armory. Whenever a Thought Steal goes down, you should worry. And what are we going to have here? Actually going to remove the Boombots. Remember, of course, the closer we get towards 10, there'll be a nasty mind control potentially incoming. In comes a heal, so he's got a big card to do some trading with there. However, now we've got a Molten Giant. I cannot use my Molten Giant at this point in time. Force of Nature is not going to get me into a finishing position, but I might be slightly close. So I'm actually just going to go everything. Ooh, okay. So I could have traded this off the table and done a guaranteed. In fact, I can still do it. Perhaps not the best order because I'm taking a little bit more damage than otherwise would have liked, but I've got a guaranteed 8 to the face with Rag there. Now, Force of Nature, 3 Treants. I will have a borderline lethal depending on what hits the table here. So our priest here has either had a very, very horrible draw, or they've perhaps playing a little bit of a non-standard deck. Light Bomb. Very, very nice. Very, very nice control indeed. Our priest is not too worried there in the slightest. And in comes a Light Warden as well. So that's given us a little bit of a reset. Force of Nature is not going to give us a finish that we were looking for. The Molten Giant is not going to give us the finish either. I don't need to innovate. So Force of Nature will give me 6. I would like a Force of Nature and a Savage Roar. I'm going to hit a swipe. I'm going to drop into a 1 removal there. So Zombie Chow is not going to be doing me favours. I actually need to wait at this point in time. Now you see I've ramped so much, but the one challenge I've had is that very, very nice removal with the Light Bomb. The Molten Giants for me aren't any good at this point. And I've lost 2 finishes in Dr. Boom and Ragnaros. So Sylvanas, my mid-game cards, and look at the mid-game cards coming out for the Priest now. Because I've not been able to finish the game, and we've got into the late game. This is by far from over. So I need to make sure that I can regroup a little bit here. Force of Nature is only going to let me remove this. It's not going to give me that finishing combo. But let's go for a bit of removal. Let's get this off the table. That was a little bit of a misplay there as well, because I've not been able to. I should have innovated up for the mana and removal. So a little bit of a misplay by me there, and what was so close to a victory is thanks to one light bomb being brought back. Back comes the Priest with a Holy Nova, and misplays by me. Look, all of the mid-game guards coming out. We are in a bunch of trouble. What we now need is our Tree of Life combo with Molten Giant to see if we can punch our way through. Okay, so Alexstrasza I don't want to play at the moment. Having a few challenges, I can innovate out into a Molten Giant if I want, and in fact that might have to be my play. I do not want to be Alexstrasza-ing at this point in time. So an innovate of all things. Oh, that's a ridiculous play by me. Right, I'm actually going to forfeit this one because I've totally messed it up. There's me thinking I can go over 11 mana. Let's give that another go. Okay, so at least we saw, in spite of my fail plays, we saw some of that, how that deck could potentially work out. So let's give another couple of games. Right, let's see the deck in action properly. Righty then, so we have a Hunter up. We're going to be playing a Rush, so I want my control cards, and I'm also going first. Really, Swipe is okay, Wild Growth is not what I want. I'm going to go for a full on mulligan. And I get a Wild Growth, I get a Molten Giant, I get a Lothar. Ooh, okay, Sunfury Protector is potentially going to help me out, but the Molten Giant I'm going to have to throw down with tanks if we get a lot of aggro damage to the face early on. Nothing from my Hunter compadre there first go. Potential misplay, could have Wild Growth, and that would have given me a 4-drop, and then a 5-drop would have got Lothar down more quickly. So I would have Wild Growth probably rather than the Shapeshift on that occasion. Cool Pet, draw a card if it's a beast, it costs 4 let. We're playing a Cool Pet Hunter, and I really hope that's not a nasty beast. It's not. Right, so I can innovate out into a Lothar, and that will let me start whomping away at my opponent, or I can Wild Growth to 4. I can then have 5 next go, and I can innovate into a Dr. Boom. So do I want to try and slow? Because I still think that the Hunter might get a little bit aggressive, I'm going to throw that down. So, right, down goes a Razeman Hunter. This is I'm feeling a bit non-standard for a Hunter deck. Remember, of course, we're playing at the moment at rank 16 or 17 or so, so this is not going to be potentially as nasty as you would see at some other levels. Right, at this point in time, I'm going to hit my opponent in the face. I'm actually going to tank early, just in case anything else comes out of our Hunter friend. So Hunter-wise, what do we see in current metagame? You do see some cool pet hunters. You do also see, ooh, in comes a kill command. Got the beast, 5 damage, nicely done. And gives my opponent an opportunity to trade off the table and be left with a minion. So nicely done here. I'm not going to be Force of Naturing. I am going to be Moonfiring. Could of course save that. Could of course traded with my Druid and done 2 damage to the enemy hero. But either way, this leaves me in a reasonable position for a Dr. Boom next turn. So feeling decent there. So remember, of course, the goal of this deck: survive in the early game, ramp into mid-game cards as quickly as we can, and then in the late game, dominate if possible. If we're behind on health, throw down Molten Giants, throw up a Tree of Life, or win fast and quick with Dr. Boom, Ragnaros the Firelord, and similar. In comes a coin for a 4-drop. Out comes a kill command. Okay. And of course leaves Huffer on the table to fight another day. So with here I could Ancient of Law for 2 cards or 5 health restore. I'm just going to Dr. Boom. Now if our Hunter has various cards like Multi-Shot, or similar, they may well be trying to get rid of this Dr. Boom. However, we still have the options. If we take more damage to the face, Molten Giant comes into play. With Force of Nature and Ancient of Law, I've got card draw or health restore. At this point in time, I don't need to worry too much about health. We've not been rushed as hard and fast as you could expect if you're playing perhaps higher on the ladder. So hopefully, unlike our last game when we had a bit of a fail play, we tried to innovate beyond 10 mana, thinking we could play an 11 mana card by playing Innovate. Ah, the logic. Right, Unleash the Hounds. 3 hit the table, and that gives 4 damage to our Hunter opponent. And going for full-on face by the looks of things, but we then see trading, 3 to the face, trading away again, deciding not to take out Dr. Boom, very interesting indeed, and then removing the final Hound. Out comes a Deadly Shot, very nicely played. That's destroying the random enemy minions, so we're by no means in a perfect position right now. So, at what cost do you want to use the Molten Giant? You want to use it when it's cheap. Or if in the late game you're still on high health, you can play it for 10-9 mana. But if you're taking a real blow, Molten Giant Lawsuit. Right, what are we going for here? Ramping, Ancient of Law. I still don't really need to do that health draw. I'm not going to go for a Savage Roar just yet. I'm going to get myself in a really dominant table position here. 1 to trade that away, 2 to the face. Of course, I did not have the Savage Roar on top, but I can Ancient of Law to heal up, or I can actually get really aggro and draw 2 cards. I might go for the draw 2 cards because my Molten Giant, I've still not taken loads of damage yet. Down goes a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And a Steady Shot. Interesting, it's a very beast heavy core pet deck. Perhaps not tier 1 of the various hunter decks that you would see around at this point in time. I'm going to go for the Ancient Teachings, drawing a couple of cards. We've got 3 mana. A Shade of Naxxramas comes into play. I will quite happily get doubly greedy and throw that down. Remember, I am not too worried at this point, unless my opponent unleashes the Hounds or similar as to aggro. I can get my Molten Giant down if he decides to hit me to the face 4 more. And with Shade of Nax, and also with Ancient of Law, I've got some nice attacking ability. Ooh, nicely done. Stampeding Kodo, removing my Shade of Nax before it can get any more nasty. And just a tap to the face, heal shot. We are not out of the woods yet, it has to be said. I can stop Molten Gianting very soon. Grove Tender. Each player mana crystal or each player draws a card. I don't really want to be doing either of those. So, do I want to start trying to trade some of this stuff away? Or do I go for the face and see what my opponent can do to me? I can do 9 to the face and drop a... not 9 to the face. I can throw down Molten Giant. I can offer a trade. And my opponent has to find a way of dealing with that. Because I've got 13 into a lethal with swipe next turn, so we've been a little bit slow, but we've ramped up. We've managed to keep our opponent broadly under control. Down goes a Belcher. We're going to have to find a way of dealing with that. And Argus doubles up for 4-6, 3-8. And with that removal, we are going to have to try something a little bit different. In comes a Orangina Ross. So, do we swipe to face and start removing things? Do we start trading the littlies? Do we just throw down a Ragnaros and start crying havoc? I think Ragnaros for some crying of havoc will be good. I'm going to take a 4. I could have taken a 3 there. I'll knock that down. I'm going to armor up for 1 as well, and then we'll see Ragnaros start to remove. Now, Unleash the Hounds would provide some danger here. Still left with the 2 tanks, not entirely ideal. We should be good to put some pressure on. In comes a Scavenging Hyena. Ooh, nasty, nasty, nasty. Whenever a friendly beast is dying, they're going to be gaining. And attacks to the face. The turtle comes in and makes the trade as well, so both of those are going to be powered up to 5, and they are putting me under danger with a secret as well. So, we need to understand what is best for our removal tactics here. So swipe, I would be inclined to remove these nasties. However, by removing these nasties, we're going to remove the Timberwolf, and that's going to power up in similarly nasty fashion. So I think that's going to become a 6-3. I think we kind of have to remove this. It means I can't play Molten Giants. It's going to be an 8-4, which is not nice indeed. But what I can do is I can throw that down. I can throw this down. Take that risk. Each player a mana crystal, or each player draws a card. I'm going to get this down. I don't want to give my opponent cards. I'm going to draw a mana crystal. It doesn't actually let me drop anything else, but it lets me get that minion on the table. I actually kind of hope that this kills this, and it does. So I got lucky there with a bit of RNGs coming in. So this could be an explosive, it could be a freezing. If it's a freezing, to make sure I play around it correctly, I'll attack first with the Grove Tender. And now we can play a 5, and we get the concede. So well played there. Okie dokie. So for our final game, we've gone down one, gone one up one. Perhaps not quite the most standard hunter deck that you'll see, but at least that gives you an idea of how this deck can work. Keep controlling the early to mid game, innovate out, ramp up with innovate and wild growth if you can. Get out your big minions, keep the table under control, and then in the late game, bring the pain. At least I'm typing away. If you're on YouTube, my apologies. Come join us live sometime. We're live on twitch.tv/failcraftcast 5 nights a week. And another hunter. Let's assume that we're being rushed again. We're going first. Not a massive fan of Grove Tender in this situation. So we're going to go for a mulligan. And we've got a Wrath. I've got a big game hunter, not quite so good, but the Sludge Belcher will also help us nail down. And with the Keeper of the Grove being drawn, that actually gives us the option to remove a minion or silence something as well. So this is not a this is not a Watcher Druid, this is not a Ramp Druid, this is not a full mid-range Druid. You can see that the Molten Giant combo is not always going to come off. You are probably going to want to play this like a rampy mid-range Druid, and that you want to try and get your big threats out ASAP, your mid-game threats ASAP. And then Molten Giant and Tree of Life is a sort of insurance combo that is immensely powerful. So coining into a Scavenging Hyena, interesting. I have no qualms whatsoever in just wrathing that straight off the table. Other option could have, given that that has 2 health, could have armoured up with Shapeshift, done 1 to that, and then of course Wrath next turn. I don't actually have a 3-drop, I'd throw down next turn, so doing the Wrath next turn to draw a card. Turns out I could have actually afforded to do that. Right, so this is an interesting one. Do I ramp and give my opponent a bit of an advantage, meaning I can drop a Belcher next go? I'm gonna play Grove Tender here. So there we go, gonna Grove Tender. Now I get 4, but it means that my opponent's going to be a turn 4. It just moves us on both a turn. So next turn I can get my Belcher out. However, I've also accelerated my opponent by 1 mana as well. So let's see, if a coin comes out, my opponent could throw down something very nasty. Actually, they've gone for an Animal Companion. We will play Pokemon, request for Pokemon TCG from the chat. Okay, so a Silence is going to drop away Misha, but leave her at a 4/4. Whereas we can actually reach out and trade that away if we go in for a Keeper of the Grove now. So I'm actually quite happy to go for the 2 damage with the Moonfire, trade away my Grove Keeper. I do have 3 left. I'm not going to use that Innovate just yet. There's nothing really I can pull out that I want. And really innovating into a Shapeshift to remove this Timberwolf would be a little hyper-aggressive step too far, I feel. So we're quite nicely set in this. In comes a secret. Freezing. It's a freezing. Ooh, okay, right. What is the attack? If he goes straight for face, I would assume this is a secret. Because we're both on full health, I'm actually considering dropping a Zombie Chow for some trading ability. So first things first, if it's a snipe, we'll find that out very, very quickly when we drop a minion. So I would want to go for the trade here anyway. I'm going to see if we can remove this. There's the freezing. Now I don't actually mind having this back in hand because I can... Oh, okay, no. Right, very nasty indeed. Summoning the 3/1/1 strikes, but at least I remove that. They're not all going to be superly nasty. And this is actually perfectly into my hands. I'm going to throw down my Zombie Chow as well because my opponent's still on full health. Totally happy to just trade away the Zombie Chow with any and all of these minions. In fact, I'll probably go for a straight trade against that Bloodfen Raptor, or I could start picking off the snakes. There's an Animal Companion. If there's a Leok, which it's not, he will however be able to charge through with Huffer if he so or she so decides. In it comes, goes for the removal, but of course you can see the value of Sludge Belcher as we described in our initial deck summary, forcing our opponent in an aggro situation to just make lots of trades. And in comes an Unleash the Hounds as well. Lots and lots of trades coming in. We'll probably see that cannot be fully removed. Left down by 1. Oh, it can be fully removed. And that's a full table clearance. Is our opponent probably going to go for face? Very good choice. So our Hunter maybe is mid-ranging. Right, so first up, I'm going to trade that. I'm going to happily throw down... See, look, got rid of that. And then here, in this situation, I'm quite happy to draw 2 cards. In comes a Shade of Naxxramas and a Savage Roar. Perfectly happy with that. We've got a big minion on the table. Our Hunter has not rushed us to death so far. Down comes a Savannah Highmane. This is looking like a more mid to late game Hunter. Indicative we've not seen Undertakers and all of those early game cards. But I'm quite happy to have a Sylvanas on the table. Now, if our this is where Sylvanas comes so nice. We can throw down a Sylvanas. I could Alexstrasza perhaps next go, or I could have Alexstrasa'd actually for a Force of Nature or similar next turn. So I'm actually going to attack my opponent to the face. Reasons for that being, other options could ramp myself into a Shade of Nex. Do I want to go for that? Get another minion on the table, that could be quite nice. Actually, or I could not quite Alex and then Savage Roar unless that was on a different game. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to throw this down. I'm actually just going to tap my opponent square to the face. So this is where Sylvanas is nice. If he goes for a direct or she goes for a direct trade, then I skip up one of the 2 hyenas and nullify the effect of Highmane. Or if my opponent starts to play more minions, I can sacrifice my Sylvanas. In comes a Silence. Well played. That can just be directly traded off the table now if my opponent fancies. But still got a decision here. My opponent needs to decide whether they're going for face or whether they're going to put some pressure on and try and trade my table down. Now, I'm going to... Yeah, we see a trade there. Out come the 2 beasts. In comes a King of Beasts. Very nicely played. Because of all the beasts, that gets 5 attack. However, I have my little treat here that's going to start buffing and buffing and buffing. So, sadly, if I want to get rid of that, I'm going to have to trade 2 minions at this point. A Savage Roar would give me an option to really punch through my opponent's armour, but the longer I leave Shade of Nex, the more problems it's going to cause. So I'm actually going to throw a big gauntlet down and just say, right, what do you want to do here? Are they going to go for Alex? If they don't go for Alex, I can start trading this away next turn. One thing is, am I going to get rushed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, another Unleash the Hounds, 12, 13, 14, potentially another Direwolf or something similar. They're not going to be quite lethal, but they could be pretty close. So the real question is it worth me trading away this King of Beasts? I'm going to say no on this occasion and see what my opponent goes for. Could be a mistake, but we're still learning this deck, still doing a bit of experimenting. Welcome to SimBuddy, who's joining us too. And that's nasty, nasty, because in comes that raid leader. All minions have got 1 attack. Steady shot to the face, and we're probably going to see a full-on face rush. No, we're going to see some trades. And the sacrificing of the beasts is going to make that Savage Hyena savage indeed. It's got a 9-5 that we can't get through. But we now have a 4-4 and a Ragnaros too. So my opponent pretty much has a lethal. A Savage Roar will let me punch through and trade 2 of those away, which I'll be quite happy with. I'm not going to be able to Ragnaros afterwards. Molten Giant is not going to be able to do anything too large, but let's not forget, before I make a silly, silly mistake, the Big Game Hunter. Very, very nice card there. Savage Roar. I'm going to do this. In comes that Savage Roar. So that Savage Roar will let me punch this away. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with this. And I'm happy with that. So that, actually, with a full table clear, Molten Giant in hand, and a Ragnaros the Firelord, should hopefully be our game. A little bit risky there. We've almost got in that position where a full execute was going to happen from our opponent, but very, very nicely, I think we've just been able to grab that. And there you go. 1 game drop, 2 games up. So that, without further ado, is our little Hearthstone half hour taking a look at Tree Druid. So, courtesy of Saucy, go and have a look at that on Hearthporn. If you're on YouTube, this link will be underneath in the description. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you're live, don't go away. We're going to be doing another deck in a second, taking a look at Handlock. But thanks very much for tuning in. That's our Hearthstone half hour, taking a look at Tree Druid. part ramp druid, part mid-range druid, part watcher druid, all coming together. Lots of flexibility, but needs tweaking. A bit of a jack of all trades in some ways, but takes everything that's good about druid in terms of ramping and ramps up. So thanks very much for tuning in. If you'd like to see more deck guides, click on the link if you're on YouTube on the top right. If you'd like to see the 2-minute summary of this deck, click on the link if you're on YouTube on the top left. Where can you find us? Well, twitch.tv/failcraftcast, Monday through Friday. Take a look on Twitter at failcraftcasts for when we go live. Last but not least, take a look at youtube.com/failcraftcasts. Over 150 Hearthstone half hours there, amongst other things. So if you're on YouTube, thanks so much for tuning in. Check out the other videos, like, subscribe, comment, tell me what I can do better, what you'd like to see. If you're on Twitch, don't go away. We're going to be streaming more in a second. So thanks very much for tuning in. Take it easy.